All right, everybody. I hope that you are doing well today. So, I'm going to do something just a little bit different today. I don't often do this. Most of my videos or lives are for fun about current events, extraordinary crimes. But I'm altogether bothered by the case of the murder of Dan Markel and the Adelson clan. And so I'm doing an awful lot of perhaps soul searching, perhaps interest introspection. I cannot rest easy with this. It is really uncomfortable. So what I've done now is I've gone back to this model of risk assessment, determining level of dangerousness. And I've reviewed some of the meta-analyses and some of the published research. Out of just curiosity, refresh my memory, figure out where I got it wrong, at what point. And I'm going to tell you, in spite of, a solid week of just pulling articles and reading, I'm nowhere near a resolution. I don't think the guy knew. I don't think he was a part of it. I will say this and I'm going to go through these individual bits of information, but I do think that as I'm going through the information, reading these articles on my own and kind of going through this, structured model or a structured actuarial model of assessment specific to where were the determinants? Where does Charlie fit in all of this great research? Where does he fit, or where does Wendy fit, or where does Donna fit? And I'm going to tell you, as you go through the risk factors, the antecedents, you can see Wendy, you can't see Charlie, which I think is fascinating. And it doesn't really have anything to do with the price tags in China, but this is my own soul searching. So that's where we are. All right. So, like I said, I went through 3 meta-analysis, and then there were 5 projects. I'm not gonna delineate those like you would like in a formal setting. But let me just very quickly just sort of go down through some of what I think is really important. So as we, if you're doing a review, an assessment, it is a structured and orderly process. You use instruments that are normed for this particular setting and goal. And so you're very careful not to cast any emotional judgment, not to let your own biases show through, but to actually just sort of go through and click the boxes and say, this would apply here and this would apply here. And at the end, you count it all up. And if the math is mathing, then you have a determination saying this is a very low likelihood of violence, as compared to, no, this is a moderate to high probability of future violence, and you might want to be really careful about what you do with this particular person. So I broke this down into some discrete areas, starting with obviously demographic. When we areas talking about risk factors and antecedents, demographics, premorbid functioning, psychopathology, and then behavioral history, which some of that is subsumed under the psychopathology. So in terms of, and then there's also considered like the types of aggression or violence versus abuse. And so I kind of went through this process. So in terms of demographics, housing can be a pretty good predictor of possible violence or increasing probability of violence. And that would be that, homelessness or recently losing your housing. Those have been shown to be connected to acts of violence in some of these projects. I also thought that here's a big one for me, a really big one that showed up in two of the big meta-analyses. And this was the consideration of personal gain. How much does this person stand to lose or gain? How low down, how hard on their luck are they? It's basically what that amounts to. And so in considering that in terms of just demographics like age and age, gender, status in terms of homelessness, where do you live, what's your education, things like that. So premorbid functioning, the personal, the consequences of the act, how much do you stand to lose or how much do you stand to gain? And I thought that was very instructive, and it is a part of establishing a level of dangerousness. And then in future premorbid functioning, education and employment, if there is a recent or a long-term history of victimization or recent re-victimization, mental health status, psychopathology being connected to violence, if the person is experiencing positive symptoms of psychopathology, hallucinations, that kind of thing. Substance abuse, active substance abuse, suicidality, both historical suicidality or currently suicidal ideation. Age of onset for a psychotic disorder or a thought disorder. The earlier the age of onset, the higher the probability of violence. Then I went to risk factors, at empirically derived risk factors that were uncovered through empirical research. And that looked like, well, so the strongest risk factor in most, well, I think all of these projects, just basic criminality. Is their history? Have they engaged in any type of criminal activity? Are they stealing property, violence, theft, all of those? And then I want to talk a little bit about actual aggression and violence, because that becomes important in risk factors because of this. You say, well, the best predictor of future performance is past behavior. Therefore, if somebody has exhibited violent behavior in the past, be careful, because they've already demonstrated that they're perfectly capable of being violent in the future. But where we don't factor in very often is this, and it is it's what we call object aggression. And this is what you would have seen in the Johnny Depp trial, when people kind of made jokes about, oh, look, Johnny Depp is beating up the cabinets, his cabinets, not someone else's cabinets, but his own kitchen cabinets. And they kind of laughed at Amber Heard's attorneys and said, that's not violence, well, in the research, or if a psychologist is doing a risk assessment, verbal aggression and or object aggression, it actually is correlated with potential future probability of future violence. And so it does get accounted for. It does get counted. Verbal threat or verbal aggression would be, making verbal threats, saying I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to get you, or, F around and find out. That is associated with an increased probability of violence. but then also object violence or object aggression. If my best friend in the whole wide world, when we would be getting ready to go out for the night and have fun, in college, she would get really mad at her hair, trying to get her hair right. She would throw her brush if she wasn't happy with the way her hair looked. So that is object aggression. Okay, so throwing things, beating up your kitchen cabinets, piling your partner's clothes in a pile and dousing them in gasoline and lighting them on fire, lighting their car on fire, taking a baseball bat to your loved one's car, all predictive of future violence. Okay, so that becomes important when we talk about risk factors. If there has been previous violence or aggression being either verbal aggression or object aggression or physical violence, those are like among the first things that you tally is, do you have a history of beating things up? Do you punch people in the nose when you don't like what they did? People that sit around and say, I'm going to get you, I'm going to ruin you, I am going to destroy your YouTube channel. Is that object aggression? Kind of, right? In a very abstract way, because our YouTube channels are entity. They're not tangible. Well, maybe they are tangible entities because we do have our videos stored. Yeah, I guess they are considered tangible, but for sure, someone who threatens and says that they're going to take your channel down because you said something that they didn't like, we would consider that object aggression. People that, threaten you to have you fired from your job or threaten you that they're going to contact CPS, those are in fact aggressive behaviors that increase the probability that someone will be violent in the future. Throwing hangers at a family member. Okay, moving on. Impulsivity, believe it or not, impulsivity is associated with a probability of violent behavior, but it's kind of an artifact because you're already going to account for those conditions that would already pick up impulsivity. When you look at psychopathology and personality factors, impulsivity is already going to get picked up as a part of that. Recent drug or alcohol abuse, definitely. There's a lot of reasons for that. If you are currently under the influence, as Sigfrido was, you're currently under the influence, then you're numb, you're distracted, your brain is not fully aware that you're about to put a bullet in somebody's head. And so it makes it much easier. In the majority of suicides, people are intoxicated. It's very rare to find someone who was sober and did that. So yes, the alcohol, the drugs, that does increase the probability of a violent act. If there are positive signs of psychosis, now already included in psychopathology that the age of onset of the pathology, that has a power differential for how predictive it is. The younger that the onset was of symptoms, then the more predictive it would be for violent behavior. However, if a person is actively experiencing symptoms of psychosis, that too is associated with a dramatic risk in possibility for violent behavior. So if somebody thinks that they see, flying elephants, or if they are talking to other people that are not there, people that other people can't see, that is considered a potentially dangerous situation, and there's increased probability of violence. History, just behavioral history, that the person had a conduct disorder. I'm talking about a diagnosed conduct disorder, not that you don't like somebody and so you say, oh, I bet he was a bad boy when he was little. No, an identified conduct disorder, identified antisocial personality disorder, those types of conditions or diagnoses are definitely associated with an increased probability of violence. The more recent and overt act of violence dramatically increases probability. Again, we talked about verbal aggression or object violence. And here's a big one. Suspiciousness on its own predisposes a person to act out in aggression or violence. Suspiciousness. And it doesn't have to be suspiciousness that someone's going to hurt them. It can be suspiciousness about anything. You stole, to say to a business partner, you stole my money. Like Charlie Adelson said, you stole $500,000. Now, Ryan seems to admit that did in fact happen. And he said he didn't care that he was getting sued for $2 million because he doesn't have the money to give. I think he said that on the witness stand. So yeah, that stood out. And I thought, well, was Charlie suspicious of his business partners? I don't think so. I think Ryan admitted to taking the money. And I think that with Katie Magbanoa, I think Sigfrido had verbally and physically threatened and assaulted Charlie Adelson. Sigfrido has a long rap sheet with a great deal of violent behaviors as well as general criminality. He's got a drug and alcohol problem. Sigfrido and Lewis fit all the boxes. Charlie Adelson does not. Wendy does check some of the boxes, and I'm going to get into those in a minute. Suspiciousness and then threat control delusions. And this is one of the reasons why I feel uncomfortable with one of the witnesses who is not a criminal that we know of. He admits to suspiciousness. He admits to these control delusions. He engaged in overt behavior at controlling Wendy. And Wendy soon after broke up with him. So did anybody do a blood test to see what kind of drugs, like cocaine? Did anybody do that? I don't know. Is there a prior arrest? I don't know. I know there's a great deal of lost weight. I don't know. All right. Also, another big indicator is status in terms of prior hospitalizations for mental health disorders. Now, interestingly, this was, the meta-analysis do not support that mood disorders are related to aggression and violence. There were a couple of the projects that they would measure, like 1 out of 600 people or something that had a mood disorder that reacted in a certain way. But overall, it was very low, both anxiety and depression. They were very low on the predictability list. There were other things far more likely to be instructive of aggression or violence. Criminality, have you broken the law in the past? Recent drug use, active psychosis, and consequences, the outcome of the behavior. What are you going to get out of this violence? Are you just stressed out, just like hella nervous and overwhelmed by life's demands? And if you beat this guy up, you're just going to feel better because it's just the stress that's sitting in your muscles, the energy potential in your muscles is just so great. You're going to feel better. Okay, well, I may feel better. I could get the same effect by going for a nice run. Or, yeah, I'm going to feel dramatically better. And it's okay if I go spend the rest of my life in prison. I don't care. I don't have anything to lose. I'm homeless. I have no money. I live in an unsafe environment. I have no way to take a shower or a bath. I have nothing to lose. If I hurt this person and I get caught and they send me to prison for the rest of my life, then so what? Life is better in prison than where I'm living now. So that would be a factor. On the other hand, if you're making $3 million a year and you live in a mansion and you drive in a Ferrari and you have wads or stacks of cash easily accessible right behind that safe door, and you are the owner of dozens of companies, and you are unmarried and dating a delightful young woman, and life is good, you're having New Year's Eve with Miss Universe. Why are you going to care what's going on in Tallahassee with your sister? Yes, you want mom's approval. Enmeshment is real. It can be a powerful gasoline to aberrant behavior. But nothing else here applies. Nothing. His housing status, he's good. The consequences, what do I stand to gain from this overt act? Nothing. Nothing other than mom approval. That will be it. So this mom approval's got to be really powerful. There's got to be something else to shore it up, though. You don't get one factor stands alone enough to drive a man to murder what essentially is in cold blood. History of violence? Nope. History of being the class clown? Yes. History of getting a lot of approval and a lot of love from people. They're naturally attracted to Charlie. They naturally like him. He is giving. He's generous. He just helps people. None of that is consistent with being willing to give up a great lifestyle through this overt act of violence. Substance abuse status. He smokes pot and maybe he was taking some steroids, but did the guy look like he was way overjuiced? I mean, doctors give steroids every day for men that are suffering low T. He didn't look, I mean, Ryan Fitzgerald looks pretty buff to me, especially for his age, but Charlie certainly did not. Recent stressors. Well, maybe he was afraid of Sigfrido. Maybe he was sick of hearing his mom bitch and complain. Availability of coping resources. He didn't have a wife that he was catering to. He didn't have children that he was accountable to. He wasn't worried about where he was going to live. He wasn't worried about having a job because he created his own job. The guy, people loved him. He had lots of friends. He had lots of places to go. He went jet skiing. He enjoyed time at the beach. He did a great deal of tourism traveling. What the hell? What does he gain from this? Psychosis. None of the above. Not negative symptoms nor positive symptoms. Suspiciousness. His mom calls and says, oh, yeah, it involves us both, Charlie. We know what we did. And he's like, was it the IRS? Like, what are you talking about, Mom? You're being really weird. What? Just bring some money. So you got money? Why? He was clueless. Now you think because your brain is primed to the crime because Dan Markel's dead. Your brain is primed for that. So when you hear Donna say, "Better bring some cash, honey," you think, there it is. She needs a payoff for the bump, right? We don't know what lie Donna was going to tell Charlie. We do not know what kind of reason she had concocted in her mind to tell Charlie. But I think what is a certainty is that when she called Charlie and seemed to be speaking in a weird kind of code like, but oh, that's so sugary sweet on a hello, sweetheart. Hello, sweetheart. It's mommy. That's really gross and sick. You get my point that it was a weird phone call. But if you listen only to Charlie's voice, the guy is clueless. He does not know what she is talking about. And it's like, what do you mean? And even when she says, "Oh, it's important, we got to talk," he still seems like he's just like, "Okay, mom, whatever you want." It's so weird. Suspiciousness, like you're cheating on me. You're cheating on me now. You're cheating on me last week. You're going to be cheating on me next year unless I take control of this situation. I never been as good as Dan Markel, and you, little lady. I don't know why I'm talking like John Wayne. You, little lady, you are not going to mistreat me anymore. I am going to watch you like a hawk. You are not going to cheat on me. You are not going to talk to other men. I know you've been talking to men in Miami, and I'm not going to stand for that. Do you understand me? Threat, control, delusions, and suspiciousness are related to an increased probability of violence. Now then, so I've kind of gone through much of what yeah, I did cover everything. Yep. Okay. So I still have no resolution. I can't make heads or tails of it. I think I'm caught. I think I'm caught in an academic loop, right? I think I'm looking at this situation and I don't see it. I like it doesn't match what we know about propensity for violence. Not only, well, Chris Watts did not match what we know, although I do think it's likely he was using drugs. I think that was probably true. I think he was being very manipulated. I think his idea, the consequences of his behavior, that he believed that he really had a lot to win, that by doing this terrible act with his family, that he was going to get a lot. And I think he was being horribly manipulated. And for the life of me, I don't know how Nicole, I don't know why she didn't get charged with something. The very fact that she contacts him and says, "Oh, let's go to the Mustang Museum," or the Shelby, was it the Shelby Museum? Manipulation that was built on research. She researched Chris Watts, figured out what wasn't working. It was almost like she knew someone. It was almost like she knew someone that knew Chris very, very well, who said, "Oh, Chris he was going to be a NASCAR mechanic. He had his toolbox. He was on his way." And then Shanann came along. The only thing that went wrong with Christopher Watts was Shanann. She came along, messed all up. Before that, oh my gosh, he had a Mustang. He loved his Mustang. He wanted to be a mechanic. He loved cars. He did. He was a good, good boy. And then Shanann came along. She was She was a Jezebel. She was a Jezebel, and she took my baby boy and went off to Denver and introduced him to a life of drudgery and family obligation, fiduciary irresponsibility. It's been a disaster. I really think he'd fall in love with any little hottie that took him to the Mustang, excuse me, to the Mustang Museum. I do. I think that's all it would take. Just take him on a camping trip. The poor boy always wanted a camping trip, and you're just the young woman to do it. Take him on a camping trip, do some creepy, weird monkey sex, take him to go see the cars. Shenanigans be history. All right, something like that. Maybe didn't go quite that bad. Okay, so you get my point. There's got to be a payoff. There's got to be something. I'm feeling like Georgia Cappleman, put my hands down. I do tend to sort of mimic myself after other people. Okay. There's got to be a payoff. There's got to be the consequences to the violent act has to be there. There has to be a reason that it's being done. For some people, it's sexuality. It's titillation and excitement, like Jeffrey Dahmer. But Jeffrey Dahmer was a very clear case of a complete weirdo and psychotic individual that had many, many years ago, had conflated violence with sex. So they became one and the same. He wasn't able to enjoy sex without violence, and acts of violence were sexually gratifying. That is a consequence. No more eye jabs. That is a consequence, in fact, to overt violence. Okay. So sexual gratification or perversions. Money can be a very real motivator, consequence of violent act, like Katie Nagbanoa experienced. You think about this. We talk about, oh, Lewis got 30,000. Kate, I know it's like 37,000. 30,000. Sigfrido got 30,000 and Katie got 30,000. But really? Are you sure? Because that was kind of sick. That was a weird look. But isn't it interesting that after the hit and after the payday, Katie realized, no, I really am in love with Sigfrido. I really do love my baby daddy. And your $37,000 and my $37,000, well, that ends up being $74,000 that we could just keep in the family and have it together. So Lewis, legit, if he's telling the truth, if he didn't lie, Lewis got 1/3. Katie Magbanoa got 2/3. Is that a motivation for murder? Yes. If you go all the way back to demographics, housing, ability to put food on the table, $74,000 for people that are working as a bottle girl, making several $100,000. I mean, several $100 a night. $72,000 would be like me and you getting our hands on, I don't know, $100,000 or $700,000. Everybody's got a price. Everybody's got a price. So, yes, you see, Sigfrido, Lewis, Katie Magbanoa, the model fits. You can predict that they would have been dangerous. You can predict it. based on these factors that I laid out. And to some extent, Wendy demonstrated some of this. She had a great deal to win. She was the consequences for an overt act of violence against Dan Markel. She had a lot to win. And she lied easily. So we do also have Jeffrey Lacoste said that she lied all the time, a lot. That can be associated with personality disorders of various types. Maybe there is a behavior disorder. Maybe there is a type of thought disorder. Maybe there's just some good old fashioned narcissism. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying she's narcissist. I don't know that. But definitely, of all the people involved in this, Wendy and Katie, those two women, they had a great deal to benefit. Both of them. Katie Magbanoa, cash baby. She's gonna love that money. Wendy, she gets her freedom, and I think she got some cash too. She had a lot. But Charlie, what do you get out of it? You can say, oh, they're an enmeshed family. He's gonna be the savior of the family. His sister and his mom, and everybody's gonna love him. He's gonna be king for the day. He's already king for the day. In this story, as we know it, as it is written, Charlie Adelson is king of the year in the Adelson clan. He just is. He's making a lot of money. He's generously giving it to people. How does he win? What do you think is likely the truth? That he told his sister that she was being ridiculous fighting over a bicycle and a skateboard, and to get over it and move on the way he lived his life. Don't buy a house. Why do you want to buy a house? If you buy a house, then you're tied down. If you buy a house, it's the same thing. It's the confines of marriage again. Why do you want to do that? Why don't you just rent and have your freedom? Live your best life, Wendy. Have some fun. You got plenty of money. And if you need money, come to me. I got plenty of money. I'll give it to you. What's more likely, that he told her to get over it and let it go? Or that he starts slumping around Miami looking for a hitman for $15,000, Jeffrey Lacoste, for $15,000, saying, oh yeah, we got to go take that guy out. Well, nothing's in it for me. I'm living my best life, but he's a jerk. He's not being nice to my sister. I don't like him. Let's just do him in. No, I don't believe it. I don't think I can ever believe it. I can't believe it only because of this, but because of 3 meta-analyses and 5 or 7 projects. This notes from all of the reading, the article. This will get trashed, but no. My logical, rational brain says, when I go through all of this is current research. Nowhere is there an indicator that he benefits from this in any way. Nowhere is there evidence of psychopathology. Nowhere is there evidence of drug abuse and alcohol abuse. He gets high. He uses a little bit of testosterone. Most of the men in the United States of America over the age of 35 or 40 are on T replacement anyway. So he's not getting crazy. He's not using cocaine. You can tell by the look of him, he's a healthy guy. I mean, he hasn't had like recent weight loss like some people in the story. He doesn't seem to have a hard time sitting still when he's talking to people or operating on people. He does say, yeah, Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Of course. Yeah. Go back and watch the police interviews again. Go watch them. I don't. I don't have to sit here and act it out dramatically. Go watch them. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh. Let me get my note. Oh, here's my notes. Here's what I want to say. I wrote a few things down. And it turns out to be exactly the things that he said before, but with more, I guess, urgency. A lot of weight loss too. It's a good diet. Okay. So, I don't think he did it. He is a convicted murderer. I do acknowledge that for certain. I am uncomfortable with deliberations that, let's face it, probably 2 hours or less because they had lunch. And Ryan Fitzpatrick ate his lunch sitting next to the jurors or some of the jurors. And they apparently had a Discord group chat before deliberation started. Nevertheless, he will go through the appellate review. I think Katie's second proffer looked bad to me. I'm not an attorney. It was really uncomfortable. I hope they do better with Donna. I hope that it's cleaner. I hope there's some objective evidence, some real evidence. And I hope they don't have to rely on someone else telling you what you are listening to. Look, people, if I can't listen to the recording with my own two ears, man, I get my ears checked. I got good hearing. If I can't listen to a recording and understand what they're saying, how the hell can the judge allow a written transcript that will tell me what I'm hearing? Is that evidence or is that manipulation? I don't know. You guys have a great day.